We're back here with the finals of the Charlotte Open. On the left, we have Joshua Smith, a 2-0 winner over Todd Stevens in the quarterfinals. Defeated Todd's Green-White Company deck. 2-0 winner over Michael Conroe in the semis. Defeated Michael Conroe's Storm deck. Has not dropped a game here since reaching the top 8. His opponent, we saw him last round, was the one who put Andrew Jessup's back-to-back performance to a halt. It's Paul Muller on Blue-Red Gifts Storm, a 2-0 winner.
We've been talking a lot this weekend about how Modern's kind of pushed to two extremes. Decks trying as hard as possible to make the game last as long as possible, and decks that are putting the pedal to the floor. And this weekend, those decks have come out on top as we see two very fast and aggressive decks in the finals. Yeah,
during our Swiss and on day 2, we had a lot of the slower decks, but they have been pushed out by the end here. We had a number of Eldrazi-tron players finishing in the top 32, none of them able to crack into the single elimination rounds, though. And a lot of that has been, I would say, on some resurgence from Affinity.
Yeah, it's just faster than Eldrazi-tron. And Storm is not a deck that cares all that much about Chalice of the Void, so a lot of the strength of Eldrazi-tron lost in these matchups.
All right, we see these decks then in the finals. Some other options from a lot of players here on the tour this weekend. We saw a big uptick in Jeskai Control in their hands as well. And really, I think this is the first time, this has been true in the last year. In day 2, we had more copies of Tarmogoyf than Death's Shadow in the event.
Yeah, it's been a while since that's been the case.
So Joshua Smith on the play. He's going to take a mulligan to start things off. In this kind of matchup, you have to mulligan a little more than you'd expect because you're really measuring your hands by how fast you think you can win.
Affinity is a deck that you want to mulligan very aggressively with in the first place. And here you're not just counting, what's my payoff? You might have a turn 1 Ravager hand that you send back, even though it's good in a lot of the matchups.
Yeah, it's good, but it's not fast.
Yeah, it's got to be Overseer, it's got to be plating, it's got to be explosive.
Keep from Joshua Smith and a scry to the bottom. So, game 1 is going to start. We'll see how explosive Josh's play can just be. On turn 1, it's just going to be Signal Pest as we go back over to Paul.
Going to want a really big turn 2 to follow that up.
Yeah, Serum Visions from Paul. The card he drew there was a copy of Baral, suggesting that he can have a turn 3 combo. There aren't too many ways the Affinity deck can even remove a 1-3. Turn 2, Steel Overseer and go.
That's fine. No mana acceleration, though. Only one other body to pump. I suppose creature land as well. No red mana, which means Muller doesn't have to be afraid of Galvanic Blast.
Muller makes that Baral. So what I've always said about Affinity is it's very consistent at turn 4-ing. And actually looking at Joshua's hand, I suspect he could still deal 20 by turn 4. The question is whether that's good enough. If he doesn't remove this Baral, it might not matter.
Yeah, see some red spells in the hand there. Not seeing any red mana, and I think that's going to be the problem.
Inkmoth Nexus activated. Joshua's going to put 1/1 counters on all his creatures using Steel Overseer. Signal Pest swings in, Battle Cry. Paul will take 1 damage and 3 poison. This is a way to present a turn 4, trying to get a poison kill.
However, Muller currently potentially presenting a turn 3. Untapping with Baral frequently converts into game wins.
Right.
Ritual, Gifts on Given, that's going to seal it up if he has it.
All right, well, we'll see what he can do. Plays Steam Vents untapped, goes to 17. And this looks like he's going to try for the turn 3. Starts on Desperate Ritual. 1 spell, 3 red mana. This Baral over this turn, a source of just so much mana, discounting each of Paul's spells by 1. Desperate Ritual turning into a red Dark Ritual. And then Gifts Ungiven, only costing 3. Spends a blue, actually gets to still float 1 red mana on top.
Depending on whether or not he has Past in Flames, you're going to see 3 rituals and either Past in Flames, maybe some kind of storm spell.
Yeah, and this is the standard Gifts Ungiven pile. It is the 3 rituals: Manamorphose, Desperate Ritual, Pyretic Ritual, and then the 4th card, Past in Flames, as the finisher. It's a powerful line here because no matter which ones Josh gives to him, Paul can eventually cast all 4 cards.
Yeah, assuming no errors in sequencing, this hand is just mathematically a win. You either give him Past in Flames and Ritual, and he has enough mana to Ritual with mana left over after casting Past in Flames to flashback Rituals, or you give him 2 Rituals, and he's more than enough to flash back Past in Flames and then flashback the Rituals.
So if there's a chance, right, if you give him Past in Flames and Desperate Ritual, and Past in Flames and Manamorphose, which is what he's going to do, Paul can ramp up to Up to 2 mana floating, cast Past in Flames. If he has no other mana sources in his hand, he's done.
Sure.
But even 1, and he is off to the races.
Even just Grape Shot from here, that closes things out.
So here's Manamorphose, 2 mana floating, 1 left. Does he have another source of mana that should win the game?
I guess he needed 2 rituals in the baseline here. Didn't seem to have it.
Doesn't find it yet. Now, he can continue to look for one. You see Sleight of Hand cast using that blue mana. Finds Sleight of Hand and then one other. Doesn't want the Sleight of Hand. He'll take the other card.
Yeah, it's going to the bottom.
You get a chance to see exactly what it was. So we'll see in a second.
Yeah, you know these strictly red rituals, pretty good from here still.
Yeah, Paul may have missed. Serum Visions. Spell number 5, Draw and Scry 2. He finds Pyretic Ritual and keeps that on top. And here's Manamorphose with his last mana, but this is going to be big. It's his 6th spell of the turn. It makes a blue and a red, and he scried a ritual to the top, which means he can spend the red mana to make spell number 7, brings him up to 3 red. Cast Past in Flames. As long as he's floating a red, we'll walk through it.
Right.
This is going to work.
Spend that blue, 2 of those reds.
You have 1 red floating Past in Flames. It's his 8th spell. All the cards in his graveyard have flashback. Make that his 9th spell.
And I used to recast a bunch of rituals.
Right, and he has a bunch. 3 Manamorphoses. Yeah, so Pyretic Ritual, spell 10, goes up to 3 red.
Multiple Desperate Rituals.
Right. Spell 11, up to 5 red. We'll count through another Desperate Ritual, up to 7. And this wouldn't, that he has these Manamorphoses means he has the blue mana to recast all of these rituals. He can recast, the big one is he can recast the Past in Flames, get a Grape Shot, and no matter where Joshua puts the Grape Shot, he can use the Past in Flames in his yard if Joshua puts it in the graveyard, or he can use the one in his hand if Joshua puts it there, and he'll be able to storm up to 20.
Yeah, flashing back Gifts Ungiven just guarantees this.
You see Gifts will find Grape Shot. Doesn't really matter what else, but he'll grab some other cards. Noxious Revival, Manamorphose. No way out here for Joshua. He'll put the Grape Shot and the Ritual in the graveyard. But Paul here, he can use the Revival to put the Grape Shot on top of his deck, which is exactly what he'll do. Uses that Manamorphose he was given to draw a card. Draws the Grape Shot. Now, his Storm is somewhere between 10 and 20 here.
Right.
So what's going to work is he's going to cast the Grape Shot for 1. Deal, 13, something like that. Flashback Past in Flames. Give Grape Shot flashback. Cast Grape Shot.
Yep.
It's going to be lethal. Says that's what he's going to do. And game 1 goes to Paul Muller.
And we still didn't see a storm count of 15.
Well, we don't know. They stopped tracking. It might have gotten to 15. And at the turn, Paul does successfully pull off the turn 3. And that's really going to be his advantage in this matchup. His deck is a lot more capable of a turn 3 than Joshua Smith's.
Yes. Yeah, and there, he did need 2 rituals to start to be an actual lock, but the Manamorphose gives him some redraws. And even if he were just to produce a Grape Shot early in that chain, he resets what Smith is up to.
Yeah, so for a second there, he was down to 1 red floating. He cast a Serum Visions, which hit Manamorphose and scried a Ritual to the top. There was a chance that Paul was going to fizzle there. But you have to temper that by saying, well, what exactly does a fizzle mean? And in that situation, what it means is that Paul tries again next turn, but because all the cards he was using to set up the combo, they weren't Desperate Rituals, they weren't Pyretic Rituals. He was setting it up with Manamorphoses, which means his hand is still 7 cards.
Yep.
So maybe misses that turn, but he's got it next turn. And there probably was going to be a next turn after he looked at Joshua's board.
Right. Smith's hand was just full of red spells he couldn't cast.
So on Joshua Smith, we're going to look at some sideboards here. Joshua Smith, if it's just a straight race, I don't think can win here. Maybe on the play he can, but on the draw it's going to be much harder. He's going to need to interact to slow Paul down so that he can win the race.
So you go down the full sideboard, you have 2 Dispatch, 2 Ether Grid, 2 Etch Champion, 2 Thoughtseize, a Bitter Blossom, a Grafdigger's Cage, a Blood Moon, an Ancient Grudge, a Rule of Law, a Relic of Progenitus, and a Wear Tear. He's going to be true to the traditional rule of sideboarding affinity. Keep it light, keep your main deck mostly intact. Big find is Rule of Law. Get that on the battlefield. You force Muller to have Echoing Truth to actually solve it. And on top of that, you just want some of these cheap disruptive elements. The 2 Thoughtseize are pretty enticing here. I think given that he already has 4 Galvanic Blast, I'm not interested in Dispatch. I think that's too much on stuff for hitting those mana creatures. Looks like no Stubborn Denial here, however. You would like to have that one.
So he also has Relic of Progenitus and Grafdigger's Cage. These are cards which interact really well against Past and Flames. I would assume he'd go for those as well.
Yeah, Relic to keep the graveyard in check is pretty nice. The Cage is less good in this matchup because you do expect some artifact hate coming out. It's more vulnerable to Echoing Truth, but still fine.
And you're looking at that artifact hate, we go over to Paul Muller's sideboard. 4 pieces of the puzzle. We saw him use those last round. 3 Lightning Bolt, 2 Dispel, 2 Shattering Spree, 2 Empty the Warrens, a Dismember, and a Wipe Away.
So the big finds are the Shattering Spree. Those are just really good against affinity.
Sure.
I imagine that you reach for Lightning Bolt anytime you expect that your opponent's capable of winning on turn 3. Good argument for going for some Lightning Bolts in this matchup. And I like the Wipe Away a decent amount, especially because you know about Rule of Law.
All right, well, they're going to get ready for the second game here. Now, coming up in just a few weeks here, we have the next Grand Prix from Star City Games. If you haven't heard about it yet, it's going to be Grand Prix Atlanta.
On November 10th through the 12th, make plans to be part of Magic the Gathering history when StarCityGames.com proudly presents Grand Prix Atlanta. Register by Sunday, October 15th for the standard format main event to compete for thousands of dollars in prizes and receive an exclusive playmat featuring Sun-Blessed Mount. Select the 3-day Infinite Challenge package to compete in all challenge events for one low price, while also walking away with the exclusive Sun-Blessed Mount playmat. Get the best of both worlds with the Main Event Plus package. Play in the main event, get the exclusive playmat, and compete in challenge events all weekend long. All Friday challenges are also Grand Prix trials. Come out early and compete for buys in the main event and more chances to claim a Sun-Blessed Mount playmat. Prefer 100-card formats? Register for the Ultimate Commander package to play in 4 Commander on-demand events and take home a Commander vs. playmat and Ultimate Guard Boulder deck case. Want to play on Magic's grandest stage? Compete in the Pro Tour qualifier on Sunday and receive a Progenitus foil promo just for playing, plus the chance for an invitation to Pro Tour Rivals of Ixalan in Bilbao, Spain. And don't forget to come say hello to Grand Prix Atlanta's many special guests, including cosplayer Christine Sprankle and an artist alley full of fan favorites, headlined by guest of honor Therese Nielsen. Be part of Magic the Gathering history. Register for Grand Prix Atlanta today.
That's coming up November 10th through 12th, Grand Prix Atlanta. Game number 2 is going to put Joshua Smith back on the play. Was able... Well, last game, I don't know if he had the turn 4. He was on a mulligan and missed a land drop. Yeah. We never found out.
Yeah, it looked like a part of the reason he kept his game 1 hand was access to Galvanic Blast, but he didn't produce a red mana source. If he had it, he could have pushed Muller's clock back a lot. Just kill that Brawl.
Yeah, and I do like how Galvanic Blast kind of plays double duty there, where it can remove the Brawl, and then in a situation where Paul doesn't have the creature, it deals 4. It may just get that extra turn anyway.
Right.
This time, though, it's going to be Muller on the mulligan.
Killing your opponent a turn ahead of schedule is like casting Time Walk.
That's the part of the manual of red card advantage. Every card they don't cast is a divination. Killing them a turn earlier is a time walk.
Yep. These comparisons are embarrassing in games that you lose, but they track really well in games that you win.
I had a handful of time walks. I don't understand how I didn't win.
I've never drawn 7 time walks and lost like that before.
6 cards for Paul. And we are good to go. So Joshua Smith starting out on the play here for the second game. Mox Opal, Darksteel Citadel, Memnite. This could be a big start. Springleaf Drum, still 2 mana available. Memnite and Opal makes 2 Arcbound Ravager. All right. I believe this hand is capable of a turn 4 win. He did enough.
There's a lot of stuff. If he has a reasonable follow-up on the next turn, then yeah.
Yeah, I guess he doesn't have any damage producers here. You know, he has a Memnite, a Ravager, and then possibly 4 mana on turn 2. There's a lot that can go right, but right now it's just 2 damage without a follow-up play.
Yeah, there's some superfluous things he can sacrifice to the Ravager. He can attack for more than 2 and almost assuredly will on the following turn, but he would like to have more follow-up.
Serum Visions, turn 1 here for Paul. Yeah, I mean, there could be a follow-up, something like that sideboard Rule of Law. He can turn 2 it here off the Mox Opal. That would be lights out. And, you know, Paul can't really represent a counter on the first turn here, so he'll just see what happens. It's going to be Vault Scourge off black mana. Only 1 card left in hand for Joshua Smith. It's an Ornithopter.
This is not what I would consider a particularly powerful follow-up.
No, and I mean, you have to still keep it on the Affinity side. I mean, it's got a Mox Opal on the play and an Arcbound Ravager. You see his swing for 4 here to put Paul to 16. It's still possible Joshua has a turn 4.
Sure, yeah, certainly something like cranial plating off the top makes his hand like absurd.
Yeah. But he may need it now. It's a turn 2 Baral from Paul, and there's no removal spell on Joshua Smith. We saw what happened last time this card was not removed.
He has the mountain. Did he draw the blast? Ugh.
No, it's Springleaf Drum.
That is a little bit worse. It is a lot worse.
So Joshua can't win turn here, which means the question is going to be, can 5.
You were hitting the camera we were on a lot, which was causing audio filtering. You're hitting this.
The Baral's not really going to block Arcbound Ravager. Paul would like that to stay alive. So he's going to take 4 off unblocked creatures, perhaps more. That's going to give Joshua the ability on the next turn, if Paul taps out, to throw all the counters on 1 creature to go for that turn 4 win. Could be bad in the face of something like, I guess Paul could just have something like Pyretic Ritual Shattering Spree this next turn and could win that way.
Right. A Shattering Spree would be really nice.
Looks like no blocks for Paul. He doesn't want to give any options of Baral leaving the table. So Joshua will make 6 points of damage. Paul down to 10.
Wipe away would even be pretty brutal because you wouldn't have the window to move the Ravager counters.
All right. Now we will see Can for the second game. There's no cards in hand for Joshua Smith. If Paul can create a large enough storm, he will win the tournament here.
Can the turn 3 deck turn 3? He's been given the green light.
Yeah, in the face of no defense. Paul just says go.
That's quite a bit worse.
Ooh, okay. Inkmoth Nexus from Joshua Smith. Now, I don't know that Joshua Smith, though, in the face of 2 open mana, actually has the turn 4. He'll swing for 6, but it's interesting how much he wants to commit. You know, you don't want to throw everything on 1 creature and then have Paul just echoing truth to beat you.
Right.
Here's Baral, who'll put it in front of the 1/1 Memnite. I'm inclined in Joshua's spot just to let the damage happen.
So yes, Ravager, these 3 mana sources that count as artifacts, it can get to 7. He can actually only make this 9 if he shoves.
So it's going to be paying for life, Dismember on Arcbound Ravager, where you have to see how Paul... Oh, no, he doesn't have to tap for it. Oh, that's so good. He just pays 4 life.
Yep.
I believe that's...
Snuff
out. Yeah, I was going to say. Joshua going to sacrifice 2 creatures. Ravager's a 6... Or 2 artifacts. Ravager's a 6/6. Now Paul's going to Lightning Bolt it. And he still has the mana up for Echoing Truth. He could actually win an interactive game here.
This is pretty neat stuff.
Yeah, oh, my.
Free mana is pretty nice.
He's got it, too, right? 4 cards? There's no way Paul would be making this play if he didn't have the Echoing Truth.
Right.
And Joshua's in too deep here. The creature's all attacking. The Ravager's going to die in combat. It's shrunk down to a 1/1 and having a Lightning Bolt pointed at it.
If you're worried about Echoing Truth, you might want to just animate this creature. Ravager counters over there. Won't produce any more damage this turn, but at least you keep all that material.
Okay. And, you know, Joshua's short 1 artifact to just grow out of range of Bolt plus Dismember. He could grow the Ravager to an 8/8, but it would still die to the Lightning Bolt. And I agree with you. My question is then, how many counters do you want to throw on that Inkmoth Nexus? Are you going to put everything, or I guess 6 is about the same?
Yeah, I mean,
it's 2 hits.
4 or 9 are the 2 numbers, right?
Yeah. Do you try to go for the win? Are you going to respect Echoing Truth? If he goes on the Inkmoth Nexus, he's 2 turns removed from winning. Paul gets 2 draw steps. He could go for the Vault Scourge here, and maybe Paul's bluffing. And if that's
Sure.
the case, sure. Lightning Bolt's going to resolve. The 1/1 counters target Vault Scourge, and Paul does have another Lightning Bolt. Vault Scourge is down. With double Bolt, it didn't matter what Joshua picked. Paul had him answered.
Right, yeah, that's quite a bit different than Echoing Truth.
But Paul's down to 5 on the hit, not out of the woods just yet.
Yeah, he still needs to actually win the game.
Well, let's see if he can. Starting with Manamorphose, he'll make a red-blue. Storm is at 1.
He's failed to produce his 3rd land previously.
Well, he could just find a Grape Shot here. I mean, he's not under any pressure.
Yeah, he doesn't need Grape Shot. Baral just checks
Just
Mem Knight.
blocks.
Forget about that. Joshua also now off of Metalcraft because everything died, so he can't Galvanic Blast down the Baral.
What he can cast, though, is Gifts Ungiven, and that's what he'll do. We've seen him go for the standard 3 ritual Past in Flames pile. We might see something different here based on him being only on 2 lands.
What do you think about, like, Snow-Covered Island?
Island.
Island.
Oh, do it. Oh, I hope. Like that, and then you just look and be like, that's why I played the split.
Got him.
His hand has more blue cantrips in it. So 2 cards in hand. We'll see the holdings.
Oh,
It's just the same one. It's Past in Flames and the 3
the
rituals.
standard ritual fare.
You know, I guess when you're playing Storm, you could gifts for lands. However, getting rituals is just better.
You're right. These are kind of lands, but they're also spells.
These lands have flashback. This is likely to set up for a win next turn. He only has to dodge 1 draw step from Joshua. Joshua will give him, we'll put the biggest rituals in the graveyard, the 2 red ones, give Manamorphose and Past in Flames over to Paul. Mana pool empty, no land dropped. Paul will say go.
And Paul does still need to have another mana source to start the Past in Flames chain. Just 2 lands, Manamorphose does not get him there.
Absolutely right. He's got, I mean, he thinks he may have time. He's got a Sleight of Hand in the grip as well. So if he draws the land, he can go for it next turn. If he doesn't, he can, try to find the land. There was an Ornithopter that Joshua drew. Paul doesn't have to win this turn.
But it looks like he's going
But
to
he's
anyway.
going to. Here's Desperate Ritual, up to 3 red. 1 Storm count at 1. And can he bring it home here? We will see. Manamorphose, 2 red, 2 blue, Storm count at 2, draw a card. And I think this one is just locked up on the board. He has enough mana for Past in Flames and to flash back the Gifts Ungiven. That should just do it.
Yeah, this is just a matter of executing the correct plays from here. No opponent. This is a game of solitaire.
To win the tournament here, Paul's going to go through these motions. Past in Flames, floating a red mana.
Is starting to flash back some rituals. Desperate Ritual, Periodic Ritual, red mana up to 5, as is the Storm. Has another Desperate Ritual, Storm to 6, red mana to 7. Manamorphose, red mana down to 6, blue mana up to 2, Storm going up to 7, draw a card for Muller. And here's Gifts Ungiven. Time to start finding some grape shots. And Smith's empty-handed. Everything's on the table. There's going to be no interaction from here.
All right. Gifts Ungiven, finding Noxious Revival, Pyretic Ritual, Desperate Ritual. There's Grape Shot. Joshua can pick where they go, but with Noxious Revival, it's not really going to matter.
Yeah, with 5 life, that's more than enough to pay 2 for Noxious Revival.
Right, so no matter where you put the Noxious Revival, Paul can give it flashback and then put the Grape. Somehow the Grape Shot's going to end up on top of the deck. Then he uses a cantrip to draw it, casts it twice, and that should work.
Yeah. Paul still has those blue cantrips that we saw earlier in hand.
So, in the graveyard go Grape Shot and Noxious Revival. He gives Paul the red mana. 8th spell of the turn, Pyretic Ritual. Desperate Ritual. On Paul's side, spell number 9. And just an excess of red mana at this point. Bringing in, he has to make it all the way up to 21. More likely, we're going to see a Grape Shot for 10 and a Grape Shot for 11. And going to flashback past In Flames. That's spell number 10. It's down to 4 red. Now the Grape Shot's castable out of the graveyard. Going to flashback Manamorphose. That's spell 11.
Get some blue mana in the mix.
And we see Lightning Bolt, spell 12. Josh down to 18.
Yeah, that's like 3 Grape Shots. 4 even because
4,
of Grape
yeah.
Shot.
Desperate Ritual, spell number 13. And this should do it. Pyretic Ritual, spell number 14. There's one more Lightning Bolt in the graveyard. So, Lightning Bolt, spell number 15. Josh goes to 15, and when he flashes back that Grape Shot, that is going to do it. So, Joshua at 15. This Grape Shot is lethal, and Paul Muller is your Charlotte Open champion. Storms all the way through his deck. He is the winner 2-0 here, defeating Affinity.
Yeah, from the 8th seed, goes ahead and just sweeps the top 8. He is your SCG Charlotte champion.
Yeah.